Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I just want to make sure the audio is okay. Can
Yes,
you
it
hear
is.
me?
Yes.
Wonderful. So it's really good to meet all of you. Well, first of all, thank you, Pearl and Queenie and Alexa, for the intro and the prayer earlier. And to everyone who's joining us this morning, Sunday morning, live in Manila, and even to those people who are abroad. I know we have some people tuned in from other countries, as you mentioned, beyond Indonesia, that are also here to join us on this exciting experience and chat that we're going to have. Thank you so much. As the ladies mentioned earlier, I've actually been on this journey toward a plant-based diet for 20 years. And it's going to be tough for me to recap everything in like 30 minutes, let's say. That happened in 20 years, but I will try my best. I took a few notes just to give you guys at least the highlights and the gist of it. And I wanted to start off just by emphasizing that we all need to kind of understand what the word plant-based means, because there are so many different interpretations of this word. Even I personally thought that when someone was on a plant-based diet, let's say, that that person was vegan. But after doing some research and Googling different definitions of it, I think the most frequent one that came up was that plant-based is defined as a diet consisting mostly or entirely of foods derived from plants, including vegetables, grains, nuts, seeds, legumes, and fruits, and with few or no animal products. A plant-based diet is not necessarily vegetarian. So when I read that, it kind of alarmed me because I thought that, plant-based meant vegan, right? But it's important for us to know that when someone is on a plant-based diet or pursuing that kind of lifestyle, that there are actually different versions of going plant-based. And I just want to clarify that I'm not vegan, I'm vegetarian. Because when you break down the word vegan to its full essence, vegans don't just avoid animal products in their diet, they avoid it entirely even in their lifestyle. So even when it comes to, let's say, fashion, they wouldn't wear animal products, and that could apply to, let's say, leathers that you wear in your belts or in your shoes, as part of your shoe soles, right? So I'm not that specific with regards to, my diet and lifestyle as being vegan. My diet, I would say, is mainly vegetarian. Yeah, that's a safe way to place me. So at least you guys know where I'm at in my journey of being a vegetarian. Okay, so I guess just to start us all off, I'll tell you a little bit about how I became a vegetarian 20 years ago. It didn't happen overnight, that's for sure. But I was actually 16 at the time. So if you're good in math, 16 plus 20 equals 36 years of age. But I really feel young and I feel great. And I think a lot of that is attributed to my diet. So when I was 16, I was modeling at the time here in Manila, and I was able to meet a lot of great designers. And one of them is actually a good family friend of ours. And he's also Ilonggo, just like we are, Queenie. His name is Larry Espinosa. So Larry Espinosa is one of our best Filipino designers, I would say. And one afternoon, he invited my mom and I to a Bible study session at his boutique. So we were very open to participating. And, back then I was very, very just open about faith, about God. And I think that's also a very important quality to have in life, if you can be open and receptive to what's out there, especially if you're an earnest seeker, and you want to know your purpose in life and are open to the idea that God actually does exist and could be leading you. I think that's the best kind of mindset to have, honestly. It helped me so much. And it led me to where I am today. And I'm in a happy place today because of all that. So when I was open enough to attend that Bible study session, it was really amazing because I was immediately blown away by more of the prophetic messages. And when I started to see how biblical passages would start to interpret each other. So it wasn't another person telling me what the Bible meant, but the Bible telling me what it was trying to say through its proper study. I was just blown away. So prophecy really gripped me. But then as I studied further, because we had a series of the Bible studies, we came across health. And health was presented during those studies through the Bible in different aspects. And the ones that the aspects that really popped out to me were, for instance, how there were already some healthy diets back in the day. I mean, if you go back to Genesis, right? Adam and Eve were technically on the original human diet, which was the Edenic diet, they call it, back in Eden, when they would consume just fruits and nuts. Really, there weren't even vegetables yet at the time. So that was really their diet. It was sufficient, and they were perfect at the time, right? Or so at least we read. And it was just so amazing how that was their intended diet. And then you flip a few chapters forward and you come across the book of, let's say, Daniel, and you see how Daniel was among the wisest men, and he was the only one who was able to interpret the dream of the king at the time, which was Nebuchadnezzar. And a lot of it had to do also with his diet. He was actually a vegetarian, they say, back in the day, and so were his friends, and he was trained that way since an early age. So I was just really, really amazed how there were already characters in history that were practicing this diet. Because a lot of people think that being a vegetarian is only the case now in our generation. It's a trend, you know, everyone's going vegan, plant-based, but there were obviously already people before that would consume, you know, plant-based foods and were vegetarian as a fact. So I thought that was interesting. And then the ultimate, I would say, I guess, Bible verse that really stuck with me was found in 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verses 19 to 20, which essentially embodies and emphasizes that our bodies are a temple, bought with a price, and we must take care of it. So this body that we were given is actually a gift from God. And, you know, we don't want to waste this gift. We want to take care of this gift, right? Usually if we receive gifts, we take care of them, we cherish them. It's the same thing for our body. So as much as we all love to have our cheat days and indulge out there, and I can totally relate to you guys when it comes to that, it's really important to still be mindful that we don't want to abuse it, and we want to create that perfect balance and have a clean and healthy temple. So with those important, lights that I had received from that Bible study series at the age of 16, I decided with my mom to give it a go and try going vegetarian and eliminating meat, primarily for health reasons also, because I always believe that if you can live a healthier lifestyle, you should go for it. Like, why would you just sit back and do nothing about it if you can be healthier? And I also am happier when I'm healthier. So I decided to do it. So my mom and I shifted what we would eat in the kitchen. And it's interesting because I'm half German. So I used to enjoy a lot of German dishes and European dishes. And Germans are really big on bread, potatoes, cold cuts, cheeses. So it was quite tough in the beginning. And my mom also used to make really good German dishes, not just Filipino dishes that had meat, but both. And so after 2 weeks into the diet of being a vegetarian, I was craving a cheeseburger, actually. And I stomped my foot down. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to the mall and get a cheeseburger. I was just like at that point that I really was craving it, and I was imagining how good it would taste. So I actually went and I had two. And you know what's interesting? Even if I was like temporarily satisfied, I guess you could say, it wasn't as good as I'd imagined it would taste anymore. I don't know, maybe it's just in the mind, and once you actually taste it, it's different. So once I had those 2 cheeseburgers, I paused, and then I prayed, and I asked God. I was like, okay, am I gonna actually just, eat meat every now and then, or am I gonna give this up altogether? And knowing, even as someone who has a medical background, I'm also a registered nurse. Was educated in New York, not practicing right now, but I learned a lot from nursing, and it also confirmed to me that being vegetarian definitely has a lot of benefits. I decided back then that after those 2 cheeseburgers, I'm really gonna go full force all the way and just keep improving, and I'll just do it step by step, because they have the saying in Tagalog, right? Wag mo din biglain yung katawan mo. So with that in mind, which basically translates to don't shock your body. It might be even harder. I decided to do things gradually, but I had my periodic deadlines. So in month 1, after the 2 cheeseburgers, I decided to get rid of pork and beef, which was easy for me because I hardly ate pork anyways, and beef was really just on occasions when we would be out of the house. So first month we eliminated pork and beef altogether, and then the second month we eliminated chicken, and then we were just left with fish. So once I was just left with fish and I guess dairy products like cheese, because we even shifted our milk to plant-based milk by then, I could not picture, honestly, a diet without fish, just because I loved sushi so much. We're also on, living on the islands here in the Philippines, especially when you go to the beaches, there's a lot of seafood. So I wasn't sure if I could eliminate fish, but about 7 to 8 years ago, I decided that I was going to try to avoid fish as well, just because it's also not as safe anymore nowadays with how, there's water pollution and everything going on, and you don't know how they're farm feeding the fish. And I've heard crazy stories along the way about the fish as well. So just to not risk it, I decided to try avoiding fish altogether. And it's really interesting because as you start to level up in your diet and you avoid, let's say, all these meats and seafoods, your body miraculously starts to adapt with you. And it's interesting because when, let's say, you haven't eaten something for a long time and then you suddenly do have it again, if it's been long enough, and depending on your body might actually reject it. And that's what happened to me. I did have a trip to Boracay one time since I'd already eliminated fish from my diet, and then there was really nothing to eat. And I remember I was just so hungry, and that was the only option because it was at night already in Boracay, and where we were staying, it was really limited. They just had seafood or fish. So I said, okay, I'll have a little bit of fish. And initially I was fine, but eventually I actually had to vomit. So my body was telling me that it was rejecting it. And they also say, in fact, just yesterday, I was listening to a health lecture. They say that once you have actually eliminated meat entirely from your diet and even seafood, and then you suddenly eat it again, the impact that it has on your body eventually is actually worse than if you hadn't eliminated it. So that just tells us that if you make a commitment and decide to go plant-based and ultimately vegetarian or vegan, it's best not to go back. I feel like it's also the way it is spiritually. When you decide to walk with the Lord, I know it's tough and there are many, situations where you just want to give up and you tend to maybe want to backslide or don't want to backslide, but you just can't help it. I would always pray, and I will always recommend that we just keep going, keep moving forward, and let nothing stop us. And if you fall, get up and rise. And if you cheat today in your diet and you have more dessert today, then, balance it out with tomorrow and don't have it tomorrow, and just, take it one day at a time. And that's also kind of how I would summarize my journey, right? So I did it gradually, but with deadlines, as I said. And so as I started to practice this since the age of 16, I want to now share with you what kind of changes and effects and ultimately benefits I've discovered and experienced personally. And some of these might sound familiar to those of you who are also on a similar diet as I am, but for others, this might be new information. So I listed about 7 main benefits that I've experienced since being a vegetarian over the years. So the first one is I gained a lot of mental clarity. I was always very studious as someone, in school, but I just noticed that my mind became much sharper. You see, the mind functions on oxygen, and of course it needs clean blood to process and work at its best. And when you become vegetarian, your blood cleans up, and it's really amazing because your brain can work so much better because the quality of your blood is really good. So I didn't feel as sluggish anymore. I wasn't so tired anymore. And my performance in school was just amazing. I was in nursing school in New York at the time, and it's a tough course. I have so much respect for nurses. And doctors, of course, but yeah, it's definitely not easy. And, I was just so grateful to be a vegetarian. So instead of snacking on junk foods, I'd be snacking on nuts, seeds, dried fruits, fresh fruits, so that was my diet back in college. And I'm just really, really thankful because it does sharpen your mind, this type of diet. The second benefit that I experienced is regular bowel movement. So I was really surprised to find out that there are people that actually only go to the bathroom every 2 to 3 days. And I was really shocked when I heard that, because normally if you're consuming 2 to 3 meals a day, you should be going to the bathroom at least once or twice a day, because every meal that you have usually has some sort of byproduct that is excreted by the body as waste. So if you're not going to the bathroom regularly, that's not a good sign. You should be going daily as much as possible. And that's something that I've been experiencing through a vegetarian diet. I would regularly have bowel movements, and they would be smooth, not difficult. And it's interesting because there's so much fiber in this diet. So this fiber helps you have that regular bowel movement. Fruits and vegetables are not hard for the body to digest, versus meat. Meat usually takes at least 2 to 3 days to fully digest. So that's a lot of work for your stomach versus fruits and veggies. So that's something that is definitely a big benefit. Third is I was able to maintain clear skin all throughout. I don't want to agree that it's just genetics, because even if it's genetics, I feel like diet plays such an important role in the health of our biggest organ, which is our skin. So I'm not into facials, and I don't have many derma visits at all. I actually just try to apply as little as possible on my face, even in terms of creams and oils. But I'm thankful that because of my diet, it's able to maintain the elasticity and the youthfulness of my skin and the clarity of it. So that's also a huge benefit. Fourth benefit, I've hardly had any weight gain. If I did throughout the years, it would just be like a kilo here and there that I could easily shed off if I intended to get rid of the extra calories. So it's really a wonderful diet when you want to maintain or even lose weight, being vegetarian, plant-based, So a lot of people wonder, since I studied in New York and the States, there's so much junk food. They're like, how did you stay so slim while you were in the States? Because most people really do gain weight. And I told them, well, aside from being, active, I really just maintained a vegetarian diet. And it's great because in the States, they have so many options. And back then I was just fortunate enough to be in the US for my college days, and I had access to all this wholesome food and these vegan treats, which wasn't so popular yet in the Philippines, but I'm glad that it is today. And we'll talk more about that later. But going back to the benefit, so that was the fourth one, right? Just maintaining my weight. The fifth one is that I hope you can agree that I was able to maintain my youthfulness. I still get asked how young I am today and for ID. So I guess that's a good thing. But I am 36, and I'm just really thankful that in most cases, or for most people, I don't look it yet, depending sa ayos siguro, or how I decide to dress up. But youthfulness is a really big benefit. So if you're worried about aging because we can't avoid it or hide from it, this diet will definitely keep you youthful. 6 is I noticed I became more patient. Interesting, right? Because there is actually a correlation when you look at further studies between the food that we eat and our patience / level of aggression. They would say that people that eat more meat are more hot-blooded, and in places, let's say I guess locally you could think of Baguio, but in foreign places more Nordic countries or places where they eat more meat, it's really also to keep the people heated during the cold weather. So it also affects your mood and your temper. So by eating more fruits and vegetables, I noticed that I became more patient and I wasn't as hot-headed through the years. And then finally, the 7th biggest benefit that I want to share with you, and I think this is one of the best, especially during this time, is that in my 20 years, I do not recall a single hospital visit because of an illness. And that's not counting in derma visits, okay? But I've never had to go to the doctor for any disease. And I praise God for that, because first of all, it's really expensive, you know, to get sick, and it's really risky, especially now that we're living in a time of pandemic, right? But yeah, I think that says a lot about the type of diet that I'm on, and also is one of the most important reasons why there's no intention for me to switch back to an older diet. I really want to continue boosting my immunity and eating healthy, leveling up in my diet. There's just too many benefits. They outweigh the cons. So, you know, step by step, I want to just keep continuing that. And, you know, a common question I would always get also is if I feel weaker now that I'm a vegetarian. And my answer is no. It's on the contrary, I feel much stronger, but lighter. And you also see a lot of these documentaries, right, on Netflix now that really show how a lot of successful athletes are on a plant-based diet or are vegans, even vegetarians. So this misconception that we don't get sufficient proteins as vegetarians, I would just like to take this moment to correct that, because there's so much protein found in plants and in nuts and grains that even for us vegetarians, if we eat too much of that, we can actually have an overdose too of protein. So please, like, eradicate that thought entirely that we lack protein. We just need to make ourselves more knowledgeable about where these protein sources are found. So just a little fun fact, yesterday I learned that there's a lot of protein in sesame seeds. So if you consume sesame seeds, definitely getting good protein. And then of course the typical like tofu and nuts and grains. Yeah, you can definitely get a lot from there as well. So just keep that with you. All right, so those are the benefits that I've personally experienced from being a vegetarian. I just want to also touch a little bit on other benefits that don't just concern me, but also the environment. As you mentioned earlier, I did win Miss Philippines Earth and represented our beautiful country in Miss Earth International in 2009. And during that journey itself, I learned so much about the correlation between our diet and the environment. So there's three main aspects, I guess you could say, that affect our environment depending on the diet that we consume. So the three aspects that affect the environment would be, number one, greenhouse gas emissions. So our carbon footprint. Check this out, guys. I wrote it down just so I don't say it wrongly, but healthy eating isn't just good for your body. It can also lessen your impact on the environment. Scientists say that food production, including growing crops, raising livestock, fishing, and transporting all that food to our plates, is responsible for 20 to 30% of total global greenhouse gas emissions. So we are actually contributing further to what is called the ozone layer hole by consuming meat, right? Because the production of meat itself from farm to table, let's say to plate, is such a tedious process that actually increases our carbon footprint and causes us to release more greenhouse gases. And that's damaging to the environment. But if we consume a fruit and vegetable diet or go vegetarian, that process can be skipped entirely. Next, also what affects the environment is the deforestation, which is also the use of land for livestock to raise cattle. So it's really sad, but a lot of forests need to be destroyed just in order to create space for livestock and to build farms. And it's such a pity because we really need, you know, all that flora and fauna that we get from the forests, and our whole earth, you know, operates according to an ecosystem. And so if we take away from that, then it affects the entire balance of the Earth's ecosystem. And then the third aspect wherein our diet, or let's say a consumption of meat, affects the environment is, this is new to me, but it's called eutrophication, which is the addition of nutrients to water sources that can lead to toxic algae blooms and lack of oxygen in the water. Eutrophication is usually caused by the discharge of animal waste or dung and plant fertilizer. So, of course, as we raise cattle, right, there will be waste, and that will eventually affect the water quality and endanger even the water. So that's something that we need to keep in mind. All right, so that's something I learned from my journey at Miss Earth. And so I try to use that platform as a beauty queen, specifically focused on environmental protection, to really showcase how our diet can help protect the environment. And on top of that, I also worked with PETA. I hope you guys heard of them, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. So PETA is an organization that really protects animals and fight for animal cruelty. And by being on this type of diet, plant-based, vegetarian, vegan diet, we don't harm or add to the cruelty that is imposed on animals. I also have a dog at home, so it really saddens me when I see animals suffer, and that too is another reason why I'm so happy with the diet that I'm on today. So you really see that being on this vegetarian, vegan, plant-based diet without meat and seafood is not just beneficial for you personally in your temple, but also for the environment and for the animals out there. So there's just so many benefits. And then moving further in my journey, there was an opportunity for me after my Miss Earth days to do some ministry among Seventh-day Adventist churches. So I would get invited a lot to speak about how God has worked in my life, and also how I've learned so much about health in the process. And because of all these different invitations that I would receive locally and internationally, I decided to really dive deeper into knowledge on health. And I wanted to quickly share with you just some highlights on what I've learned that I think would also benefit you a lot. This is something I didn't know back at 16, but I know now. It's called the 8 Laws of Health. Now, it's interesting because we're so used to, laws being part of the government and just organizations and companies. They have their guidelines, rules, regulations, laws. But what really surprised me is that there are actually health laws, and there are 8 general health laws that we can all practice on a daily basis, and then can also serve as a guideline for us to really make sure we check off every aspect of our health. And the best way to remember the 8 laws of health is through an acronym called NEWSTART. So that's the most recent acronym used. And the word NEWSTART, each letter actually stands for one of the health laws. I'll quickly run you through them. And then, of course, we can always continue this via research, or we can all keep in touch. And I'll try to post more on social media as well about the laws. But for today's purposes, the acronym NEWSTART stands for N, nutrition. So it's really important for us to have a balanced nutrition. And that mainly should consist of, fruits and vegetables, grains. So as much as possible. If you can go vegetarian like me, great. That's nutrition. E for exercise, because you can eat all the healthy food in the world, but if you don't move your body, it's also not balanced. And you definitely want to make sure you get enough exercise on a daily basis. So just to get your heart rate palpitating, even 30 minutes a day will suffice, or suffice. Yeah, and then we have W, which is for water. Of course, we can't just have a diet that's, fruits and veggies composed of, but then we drink, Coke and all this like wine and no water. We really need to have water in our diet. In fact, our body is mainly consists of consists of water and our blood. So we really need to replenish that and drink enough water. Just a quick fact, I mean, most people don't even know if they're drinking enough, but for people like us who live in the tropics, we need to consume at least 12 to 15 glasses a day, just because it's hotter and we sweat more, versus, let's say, colder climates, which require about 8 glasses of water a day. So make sure that you always drink water. I noticed this helps me when you have like a water jug with you or a thermos, and you know, it reminds you that you need to drink, and it's more fun to drink for some reason when you have it there with you already. All right, so that is W, and then let's go to the word start. S is for enough sunlight or sunshine. So I know that a lot of Filipinos are shy from the sun and they try to, you know, maintain being fair-skinned. I personally prefer to be tanned. I look healthier when I'm tanned, and I have this reddish color on my face. So it's important for us to get exposure to the sun. In fact, that's the only way we can actually, or the main way we can obtain our vitamin D. So we need to have as much sunlight exposure as possible on a daily basis, but we don't need to be, let's say, tanning for hours. You just need to get about 15 to 20 minutes of sun exposure. And recent studies have shown that it's great to go during the hottest time of the day, but just for a short amount of time. So if you can go, let's say, between 11 and 1, I know it sounds really scary and people think, oh no, I might get skin cancer, but no, that's when the sun rays or the gamma rays are hottest. And it's great because it eradicates or it eliminates a lot of the bacteria or possible viruses that are trying to thrive and survive in our bodies. So it's good to get enough sunlight, especially also aside from your face and your front of your body, also to face your back to the sun. Very, very helpful. And for those who have higher blood pressure, make sure to drink at least 1 to 2 glasses of water prior to sun exposure. So that should help a lot. Otherwise, you would overheat. No? So that's sunlight. And then where are we up to next? T. So the first T of the word start, it stands for temperance. Temperance is so important, and that doesn't just apply to food, it applies to all aspects in life, because we don't want to do things to the extremes either. We want to do things in a balanced manner. So when it comes to food, we need to be temperate. When it comes to our characters, we need to be temperate. When it comes to other matters of life, you know, it really applies to so many aspects. But when it comes to food, we definitely don't want to overeat, or we don't want to turn out malnourished either. So it's important to be educated when you go on this type of diet, and then to balance it out and be temperate about it. It's interesting because BBC revealed that nowadays there are more people dying from overeating than starvation. So imbis na kulang sa pagkain, sumobra sa pagkain yung mga tao, kaya sila namamatay. So it's really important for us to also be watchful of not just what we eat, but how much we eat, okay? So temperance is key there. And then A, letter A is for fresh air. So most of us still find ourselves living in the city. For those of you who are already enjoying country living, kudos to you. That is my dream, actually, to be able to live and thrive in the country and to really just, you know, have access to the city and be helpful to people in the city. So fresh air is mainly found in the country, of course, or in the mountains near the sea. But ultimately, you know, we can find ways to just you know, create access to cleaner air, maybe enrich our homes with plants, you know, start growing some agriculture, and then hopefully when we're able to also, you know, frequent the country more, go on more out of town trips, because there's so much, you know, good that you can receive from fresh, clean air versus the polluted air in the city. So that's another health law. And then there's 2 more, R and T. So R stands for proper rest. Rest is so important, daily rest, and of course, weekly rest. So on a day-to-day basis, it's important for us to make sure we get enough sleep and at the right time. So 7 to 8 hours on average is pretty good for most middle-aged people. Obviously, children need to sleep a little longer, and those who are young at heart and older in age might need a little less than that. But the time that we go to bed is really important. Harvard did a study wherein our cells regenerate most effectively between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So you don't want to miss that window. You want to make sure you're asleep by 10 p.m. and until 2 a.m. so that your cells fully recharge and receive maximum cell repair. So that's really good to know. And I know it's hard to sleep early, especially because a lot of us, we have obligations and responsibilities, but let's make the effort step by step. And if you have hard time sleeping early, you need to start conditioning yourself and creating an environment that will make you more tired so that you can eventually pass out by 10 p.m. And one way of doing that is just, turning the lights out earlier, avoiding screen time an hour or so before you go to bed. These are all great ways. And then there's obviously also things you can eat and do, activities before you sleep that will help you sleep earlier. So that is so important. And then on a weekly basis, I personally, as a Seventh-day Adventist, I'm really thankful that we have the weekly Sabbath, because I work so much and I'm such a busy person that if I didn't have that seventh day, I'd probably be working on that day too. So I'm glad that God really created the Sabbath for man, as he says in, I think it was the book of Exodus, that, was intended for us to find rest, reconnect with him, and really just, unwind from what busies us in this world and really just center our thoughts on the Lord again. I'm really, really happy that we have this day of rest. In fact, when you look at the 10 Commandments, it's the only commandment that has the word remember in front of it, because God probably knew that we would forget about it. So it's important for us to really remember the Sabbath. It's so important to God, and it should be important to us, and it has so many benefits. So that's why, even it affects me in so many ways, the Sabbath. Like I started to shop more frequently online now because of the pandemic. I used to detest online shopping, but now I don't really have much of a choice and I started to enjoy it. But it's funny because even when I get Lazada and Shopee deliveries, for instance, even these guys that used to deliver to me on Sabbath or Saturdays, and I can't receive it during the day and I can't pay them either because it's Sabbath, they even know. So now they just bring me my shipments on all the other 6 days. But it's so nice, I love how they respect it, and they say it with a smile on their face na alam na daw nila, they know already that they can't deliver on Sabbath. So I thought that was nice. And then finally, the 8th law of health is, again, letter T, but the second T stands for trust in God. So all these things that we would pursue for our health would not be complete without our maker, our creator, and trusting him. So having God in the picture, for me personally, always makes the most sense. I can't imagine being healthy and happy but not having God in my life. He's just been too good to me and too patient with me for me to actually ignore him. So that is the 8th law of health, to have that trust in God, that even when things are so uncertain, like during this pandemic, we still have a creator that we can run to unconditionally. He's there for us, waiting for us, praying for us, pleading for us, being patient with us, loving us even when, we're at our lowest and worst, as a person. He's there. And that's what amazes me. So these are some of the things that I discovered while I was doing ministry in different churches as I was studying more into health. I also learned about the benefits of eating raw foods versus cooked foods. Usually when it comes to raw foods, there's a lot of enzymes that are still active and alive. And so if you consume raw enzymes, they actually aid in the process of digestion, because we as humans, we have a certain set of enzymes that we produce. And studies have shown that if you are on a meat diet or carnivorous, usually you use up more of your enzymes earlier in life. But with a raw diet, you have more external resources of enzymes, so you don't use up your own enzymes right away. And yeah, it's just, there's so many benefits to eating raw, honestly. And then when we do cook, it's usually steamed or boiled. We avoid oil and fried foods in the house generally. That's a whole nother topic that we can discuss, but again, for the purpose of time, I'll keep things simple. I also realized how beautiful simple food is, first and foremost, you know, because there's a lot of dishes that are so complicated. They have over 20 to 30 ingredients. But even during this time of the pandemic now, when I started to become more active in the kitchen, I realized that, you know, food preparation, even for vegetarians, is so easy and fast and straightforward. And it's not complicated. As Queenie said earlier, as a fellow Ilongga also, you know, we eat laswa quite a bit. So that's a lot of veggies boiled in water and rock salt, and you just like add calamansi and you're good. You know, it really tastes great. And you know, just conditioning your palate to appreciate the simplicity and a natural way of eating again, because over time and with consumerism and all this synthetic food in the market nowadays, our taste buds have become so distorted. It's really important for us to find our way back to appreciating simple, palatable food, you know, because, you know, some people, they can't find appreciation, let's say, for fruits because they don't know anymore that the way it's supposed to taste is actually a really beautiful taste, because they've just, you know, distorted their taste buds so much that they're seeking more of those synthetic ingredients like MSG or anything that kind of you know, excites the brain, excitotoxins rather, but they have detrimental effects on health. So it's really important for us to be able to see the beauty and simplicity in food and how that has its advantages. You know? And also what's interesting is when you eat, you don't want to eat too many different foods in one sitting. In fact, I read that it's best to have 2 to 3 types of combinations in one meal. So in the Philippines, we have what's called ulam, right? And sometimes there are too many varieties of ulam, or ulam is like what you eat together with rice. So usually it's a saltier add-on, or the main part, like let's say meat or veggies or stew. You have that with rice. But if you do have, let's say, ulam, it's best to have, like, let's say, rice with 1 to 2 ulams, and that's it. I know that sometimes we get all festive, especially on Sabbath, and when we get together with our brethren at church for fellowship, there's like 20 different ulams in front of you, and you want to try it all, and we get so excited. But that, again, leads to overeating and not being temperate, right? So we need to also be careful with you know, how much we consume in one sitting. So that made things easier. And it kind of also told me that I can't really go have too much food at buffets anymore. Parang lugi ako. I would be at a loss if I went to a buffet nowadays. Or if I do, I really just have to decide in the beginning what I'm going to eat. So that's something I also learned in the process of my ministry on health. And then what else? Proper food and fruit combination. So it's really amazing how there are also proper combinations when it comes to food. I can't touch on all of them right now. It would take too long. But what I definitely want to share with you is that when it comes to eating, let's say, fruits and vegetables, it's best to eat them separate. And the only fruit that I'm very sure of that you can have with vegetables is pineapple and sometimes papaya, but pineapple is okay to have during the same meal as vegetables. Otherwise, you want to eat fruits and vegetables separately, because it doesn't effectively digest by the stomach. We may not notice it because our stomach always tries to compensate and do its best to digest both when we consume both. But if you really analyze it carefully, our stomach works optimally when it's eaten separately, except if you want to combine pineapples, of course, with veggies. So that's one thing I want to definitely leave with you. And also when it comes to fruits, there are different fruit categories. And I'll share more about this on Instagram. I'll do a separate post on it. But there are 3 types of fruit categories. The first one is sub-acid fruits, which let's say are more of like your lemons and your berries. And then you have, acid fruits rather. Lemons, berries, really more on citrusy fruits. Then you have subacids like apples and pears. And then you have your sweet fruits like, let's say, mangoes and bananas, right? See, I'm even getting confused. I think mango is subacid. But I have a list that we can refer to, and I'd be more than happy to share it so that we can also consume fruits properly in a way that is pleasant to digestion. So that's something I also learned in the process. And so when I started juicing, especially during the pandemic, it was so easy for me to start combining fruits. And believe it or not, when you follow the food combination chart, or the fruit combination chart in this case, the juices turn out really amazing. They taste so good. Like, let's say when you combine subacid with acid, that's okay. Or subacid with sweet fruits, that's also fine. You just can't combine acid fruits with sweet fruits. So these are things that you definitely want to keep in mind. And also when it comes to melons, you want to eat any type of melon, whether it be honeydew or watermelon, separately as much as possible. So there are all these like little tips that I could definitely share on further with you, but maybe next time. All right, so I know I've shared a lot, and I'm coming to an end, but before I do so, I just want to highlight how helpful this book has been to me personally. It's called Counsels on Diet and Foods. And it was written by Ellen White, one of my personal favorite authors. She's a very controversial woman, but for me, I mean, she's written beautiful work, and it all points back to God. That's my favorite part. She never takes any glory for herself. But this book in particular is great. It's impacted me a lot. I'm thinking of doing a little giveaway on Instagram very soon. So please do follow me so that we can also get this book out there more. And aside from that, I also wanted to quickly, in conclusion, touch on the impact that this vegetarian diet had on me moving forward in my life. So most of you know that I'm a mother now, and I currently have a 4-year-old son, and I've decided that with the wisdom and knowledge that I've received, from the Lord and through my experience as a vegetarian, to raise him vegetarian since womb. And I've done that, and I want to share with you real quickly what kind of effect I've seen and what the results are of that so far. It's just been amazing because my son, he has been, I guess, conditioned, his palate since birth to really appreciate fruits and vegetables. So he loves vegetables. He loves eating raw onions. He loves eating lettuce, tomatoes. For those of you who know Live Green, that is produced by Dr. Tam Mateo. He loves drinking his Live Green, and he chews on spirulina like they're candy. So it's really possible to train up a child and condition a child to love fruits and vegetables if, as parents, we do it early on, and if we also set a good example to them. So that is just unbelievable. And just like his mom, in the 4 years of life, he hasn't been to the hospital. I mean, he'll have like maybe a mild fever for a day before, and then a doctor would always say, oh, observe, no need to give meds, and he'd be fine the next day. And I think it's just like his body trying to fight an infection potentially, but his immune system is so strong. And it's all because of his diet and his lifestyle, the 8 laws of health. I really made him like my protege that I test everything that I've learned on him from scratch, like since his young age. And it's just amazing. And even at the age of 4, like his mental capacity is remarkable. It's sharp. You know, he's 4 years old and he's almost memorized 50 Bible verses. It's just amazing and mind-blowing to see how he retains this information. And so I want to continue him. And it's also one thing that I've learned through experience is I don't force him to eat vegetables. I really just present it in a very nice and exciting way. Like he loves pasta a lot, or he'll have pizza with no cheese. But I always, you know, make it very exciting and fun and beautiful so that he'll actually want to eat it. And I'll explain to him the benefits of what he's eating. And then I'll test him after and I'll ask him, you know what, do you want to eat meat maybe when you're older and try it? Are you curious? And he's like, nope, no, mommy, I want to stick to fruits and vegetables. And he's just 4. But I really talk to him like an adult. And everything that we do should always be out of love and with good intention. And I'm sure as parents, this is really our intention for our children, right? So we need to guide them. They don't have anyone else to depend on. And more so now we have that opportunity since we're at home. We, you know, are in the midst of a pandemic. So there's more quality time for us to be with our kids, for us to feed our kids and really take control of how we train them, because we don't want to just, you know, shove them to like a yaya or drop them off at school and hope that they learn something good, including habits in the process. If we can do it ourselves, you know, parents are supposed to be the educators of children. We are their first teachers and we owe that responsibility to the Lord. So even if it's tough, I personally, I have 2 jobs or 2 businesses that I run and my son, and every day I run around like a headless chicken in my own home, but it's okay because I know that it's serving its long-term purpose, and he won't be able to blame me one day for not teaching him because I know I have this light and I want to impart it on him. So that's how I've decided to raise my son in this journey of motherhood. Even his diet is vegetarian and he's reaping the benefits, and his immunity, of course, is top so far, praise God. And then I also decided to take it a level further. Since we were in quarantine for quite a while, I decided to explore what other things I can do for other people with regards to diet, because I mean, we are already eating quite healthy in our home, but I noticed that when people would visit us at home, they would really like to, you know, they really enjoy eating food with us, but they don't know where to start. So I decided to just bake some healthy vegan desserts. And I did this during quarantine and my family loved it. My friends love it and they all encouraged me to sell it. So I decided to start Bakehouse by Sandra Seifert online for now, mainly on Instagram. And I know that just like most Filipinos have a sweet tooth, we love to indulge, we crave dessert, you know, even I do. I know that there is a way to still be able to enjoy desserts, but make it healthy. I know God would also want us to enjoy a little bit, you know. So, you know, with a lot of prayer, a lot of trials and errors in baking, eventually, you know, I was able to produce recipes that are vegan, but taste really good so far. And I'd love for more people to try this. And so the platform or the business of Bakehouse is really intended to give more Filipinos at this point the option to still be able to enjoy desserts, but that are vegan and are healthier. So even the ingredients are usually organic. I'm very, very careful and picky with what I put in there. A lot of reduction in sugar. I don't use white sugar, for instance. I'm very cautious with flours now, especially as I'm shifting towards, you know, hopefully breads, so vegan breads. And I want to make sure that I use bromate-free flour, because bromate apparently is carcinogenic or can increase the risk of cancer. So there's all these new light that I'm learning about that I want to try to apply to Bakehouse, and hopefully in the process, not just offer desserts to Filipinos, but even get Filipinos to enjoy savory and ultimately raw foods like salads, you know? So that's the long-term goal, and it's really intended for all of us, not just for my home or for me. So I'm praying for that journey to continue. And then so I know I was going to say I'm going to wrap up now. We might be out of time already, but most people often are curious to know what we eat at home. So I want to quickly give you just an idea of what food on our table looks like at home. So I mentioned earlier, we refrain from oil. So hindi kami nagfa-fry with oil. We usually saute in water, or we steam our food nowadays. We don't have any white sugar in the house. We tend to go for natural sugars. My son doesn't really consume sugar in his food in general. My mom as well. So if we do need to add any form of sweetener, it's usually maple syrup that we get at Healthy Options. So that's, let's say, something we'd sweeten our berry smoothies with, for instance, if it's needed. And also, every meal contains something raw. So in the mornings, the raw aspect would be fruits. We always have fruits in the morning paired with, let's say, grains, oats, cereals. So hindi talaga mawawala yung fruits. We always have fruit in the house. And then for lunch, no matter what we're eating, whether it's rice with ulam or pasta or anything else, there's always salad. So that's the raw aspect during lunch. And then for dinner, we tend to have, something very light like fruit or maybe a light soup. So that's been our diet. And then if we have cravings, it's usually like muffins or loaves from bakehouse that are vegan. So yeah, it saves us a lot of time to be on this diet. It's very quick. I can make lunch in like 20 to 30 minutes this way. It's mainly chopping and then just assemble the ingredients. And then a lot of herbs and spices, nuts to add flavor to it. So we don't do any seasoning, no magic syrup, Maggie, nor none of that. So it's very, very wholesome, very plain, simple, but it's good, And then you start to become more creative with how you can make it tasty or masarap. So finally, as I end my talk, I just wanted to remind everyone that we're currently living in a very critical time. I mean, we're experiencing a pandemic altogether, right? And diseases are prevalent in our time, and Cobit is just one of the many diseases out there. And so it's really important for us to take good care of our health and the health of our families. We really need to treat food like medicine so that we can prevent going to the hospitals and potentially getting sick, and we can really just protect ourselves and boost immunity naturally. So I want to encourage all of you to really consider going on this journey of a plant-based, ultimately vegetarian, and if you can, vegan diet. It's really, it has so many advantages, especially in our generation. We have way more options than back in 2000 when I first started at 16. So there's more than just bakehouse. There's a lot of other, homes that are now selling food online that's vegan, vegetarian. So we have no excuse not to try it, and also to, enjoy this kind of food in the process also. So I hope that you were able to learn from my journey of 20 years experience, and also that you decide to invest in taking care of your temple step by step, and get creative, make yourself knowledgeable, educate yourself in the process. And I'm telling you, as you go through it, it's going to become easier and easier. And whatever is harmful to your body, start to avoid it step by step, level up, never stop leveling up. If you know it's bad for you, try to avoid it. And eventually you'll notice that, it's been a year, it's been 2 years that you've actually avoided it already. So that's one thing I'll definitely keep emphasizing. So now is probably a good time to jumpstart into this new chapter. I mean, this could be a kickoff point for you, that you're here this morning, if you've heard this information. I believe our second speaker will have even more to share with you that you could learn for. So hopefully this will be a great starting point for you to get educated and motivate you to also pursue this type of diet. And then finally, I want you to know that it's really, really true that health is wealth. So, we're living in a time where your money doesn't matter so much anymore. What matters is that you're healthy, your family's healthy, you're happy, and if you find the Lord in the process or you're with God already, just hold on to him. Those are my 2 cents for all of you this morning. And of course, we must keep the conversation going. And I'm thankful for social media. So let's all keep in touch. And if you have any questions, if it's okay with our hosts, I'd be happy to answer a few questions. If not, we can continue the conversation on social media. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. And God bless you all.